experience. And so the gravlev experience is going to really go a step up with this.
Well, let me just first say before I kick in here that how frustrating it is to, well, obviously as one of the backers, but also I'm sure as the devs who do this, to have to go and redo this yet again. Now, initially, well, still, Star Citizen very Newtonian-based physics. Everything's Newtonian. You have your thrusters. X amount of thrust is coming out of this side. If something happens to that side, that's how it compensates. They've always been very proud about the Newtonian flight physics of everything. But the problems arise when you move to the surface. And if you're in gravity and you're on a bike, there's a whole new set of laws and problems which come into effect. They even had one of the, I forget his name. Who was the physicist that used to work here at Star Citizen? I'll remember. I'll post below.
The current state of gravlev is a little rough. We have such a wide variety of planets that the existing gravlev just doesn't cope particularly well in a lot of the common situations you might
some planets like those with gravity
find on planets. And so we have it getting stuck on geometry and being flung into space and glitching into things and having all sorts.
Who remembers the very early passes on these where any one of these grav bikes was as good as a spaceship? You could essentially launch off a mountain into orbit. That was a lot of fun.
It's a hilarious physics bugs that may be funny, but they don't really make the experience very fun or enjoyable. So this quarter we finally got time to really dive into gravlev and really figure out what it's going to take to make it what we really want it to be. One of the first things we focused on with gravlev is this new specialized suspension system, which is a little bit like a car, but it's doubly disconnected from the bike to make it really feel like it's hovering.
All right. I know so many people that have been saying for years, just give it invisible wheels. Well, in this case, invisible suspension. And finally, like we know that they knew this is a possible solution also. The Newtonian physics of having the hover bike on the surface, and the whole episode they had once showing how it shoots rays in front of it to detect what's in front, and then it will compensate ahead of time. So if there's a rock, the thruster will fire ahead of time for it to prepare for going over a rock. There was a very, very complicated set of equations to make the gravlev work. And a lot of people said, hey, put invisible wheels. And, you know, big invisible bouncy wheels will do it. So I'm not saying that is exactly what they have here, but I am saying it looks like it's exactly what they have here, right? And look, it's not that the devs didn't know. The devs tried one system, and it looks like they've nailed down a system which does finally work. So I'm excited. I love these bikes.
The largest benefit we've gotten from this new suspension system is we can orient and move the bike somewhat independently of the suspension in ways that we...
Look how smooth it's going. That's awesome. That's totally just suspension, right?
The next step
right before slam the rock.
Use this new suspension system to implement a whole host of improvements to the stability of the bikes. So they're not going to bottom out, they're not going to bump into the ground.
That was a massive problem. Every time you take a big jump, you go over a rock, you go over a mountain, and when you hit the ground, you smack into it and explode. The Newtonian physics of it is the thruster is working as much as possible, but the mass plus the force and your velocity of going in a certain angle is guaranteed that it's going to make you blow up. So I guess they found a solution to that.
They're not going to crash off rocks and lose control. They're not going to go flying off into space, which...
Just what I said. Actually, I kind of like the flying off into space, you know? If you lose a spaceship, you just go home on your bike. Well, it might take a while, but you'll make it eventually.
Really makes the whole experience much smoother, much less glitchy, much more reliable.
Nice.
So once we've got this super stable suspension implemented, we can implement some improvements to the actual control of the bike. So the turn friction for making maneuvers is improved.
Did you see him slide into that stop? That is awesome. That is very bike-like. Just taking a corner, slamming on the brakes and actually stopping. At the moment, if you try to do that, you just go round in circles and you won't be able to stop very quickly. So that looks great. That looks really good.
And we can also implement things like better height control, and that will have differences in the handling of the bike that you can feel a lot more than you used to be able to.
Awesome. This is great. All right. being able to raise and lower the bike. So I did read that when you come low to the ground, you go faster and there's more traction. The higher you are, it's a bit slower. You're a bit more slidey probably. But the advantage is you won't be slamming into rocks. When you go lower, you do have to outmaneuver or get out of the way of every single object which might break your bike. At a higher altitude like that, you go right over them, so it's kind of decide which one you want. But being able to choose is great. And the next big issue I've personally had, and probably you too, is coming up now.
And they've implemented is a thing called anti-fall, which effectively kicks in to arrest the bike's fall when you fall from a great height. So if you do big jumps off dunes on Daymar, the bike doesn't crash into the ground now when you...
That looks great. It was like a very smooth descent and stopped at the right altitude as opposed to bouncing off the ground, which is where we are at the moment.
Get back to the ground, it much more aggressive.
And see the way it just went over that hill without actually scraping on it? That is a big difference. That is great.
It stops itself and prevents itself from crashing.
That looks so good.
Last but certainly not least, we have this amazing feature where if you power off the bike or you get off the bike, the suspension will intelligently sort of relax the bike down.
The amount of times I've gotten off my bike and run off and look around, turn around behind me, only to see that I left it running and it's just out of reach. And you know what? You start doing the jumping, can I jump and click and land on a seat? Yeah. Thank you so much. This is so important. I'm glad that I finally nailed that down. So you jump off your bike and what happens? Yes. Beautiful.
Similarly, when you get on the bike, it will softly ramp in the suspension so that the bike will sort of softly lift up and you're ready to go on your adventure.
What a small little thing, but what a big difference it makes. This is great. I love it.
I'm hoping that the combination of all of these new features and improvements really make this a lot better, and it's been a personal hope of mine for quite some time that I've been able to do this rework, because gravlev just has such potential for such amazing moments, and I know when it's used, for example, in the Daymar Rally.
So look how close he's flying to the ground here. It looks very smooth. This looks great. Racing is about to get more fun again.
It's just such a cool sci-fi vehicle, and it's been my wish for quite some time that we can make that experience, as good as it can get.
These new...
Nice. So yeah, very exciting changes coming to the gravlev, and like you said, racing. Hope to see more of that coming in. So there is a little sneak bonus, because I guess Jared's gonna say a couple of interesting things here. Let's analyze this.
gravlev improvements coming online in Alpha 3.16 aim to finally fulfill the unique promise inherent in vehicles like the Dragonfly, the Nox, the X1, and the upcoming...
All right. So, theory crafting hats on. The Nox, the X1, the Dragonfly, and what? So I don't think they're adding yet another gravlev bike into the game. Do we need one? Yeah, it's nice to have different selection, but I don't think they're adding yet another bike. But I do think they may go maybe a 2-seater or maybe a 4-seater vehicle for gravlev. Why not? Huh? I think so. Does he give any more hints? I don't think he does. No. But definitely some sort of gravlev vehicle, right? The Prowler, will that benefit from this too? It should, because it was advertised as having these gravlev things so you can kind of skim the ground, which will make it a great ship. It is a really great ship. Make it a better ship, right? All right, let's wrap it up there. They go and talk about Jumptown version 2, which is going to be awesome. There's going to be a lot of PvP. I'm looking forward to spending a lot of time there on both sides of the law. The first version of it was great. But give me your thoughts on the gravlev system, and we'll talk about this Jumptown in another video. As always, if you enjoy the content, thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you in the next one.